It's outlined in the in our Committee of Adjustment agenda. I would need a Bob.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. I would like to move that the Sarah Goldrup be appointed as Secretary Treasurer and that Diana Saunderson be appointed Acting Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment.
Okay, second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item then is unfinished business. Are you taking that then, Tina, or how are we doing this?
Yeah, no, I can take that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. This is a deferred application from a meeting that we had in February. We wanted direction from the Ontario Land Tribunal as to how best to proceed with this application. It is consent for a lot addition, severing a portion of the property at 114 Doom Valley Drive and conveying that to the property at 136 Doom Valley Drive. Staff have reviewed the application in light of all provincial, regional, city policies and are recommending approval subject to a number of conditions.
Great, thanks, Tina.
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair. Oh, yes, I see Ms. Ross is signing in right now because she's the applicant.
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, Della.
Good morning.
Morning, Della.
Hi.
Is there any questions or comments for the applicant?
No, not at all. We agree with the staff recommendation of approval for the lot addition. And as Tina said, we have heard back from the LPAT and they did not have concerns with this application as well. So yeah, thank you, Chair and Committee. And again, no concerns.
Great, thanks, Stella. Bob?
Yes, I have a quick question. Actually, maybe more for staff, Mr. Chair. In my time here at the Committee of Adjustment, which is a number of years, I've never seen an application go to what was the OMB and then the LPAT and now the OLT. I've never seen it go to that organization before coming to the Committee of Adjustment. And so just kind of make me scratch my head a little bit. Other than that, I really don't have any concerns with this. Just it seemed a little strange way to approach it. So that's just my comments or question. Okay, so let me rephrase the question in a simpler way. Is it possible we may experience more of these applications going to the OLT before coming to the Committee of Adjustment?
To you, Chair, this will be situational dependent. So it will depend on the previous background and history of the application or I guess in this case, there was a hearing already. And so based on that decision, we felt it was necessary to go back to them to confer for this consent application.
Scott?
I wasn't going to ask the question, but didn't the hearing have to do with 136 Doon Valley? Not necessarily the severed parcel?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or a motion? Scott?
I'm prepared to move the application. I'm glad that staff sorted it out with the OLT, and like I say, I'll move the application as per the staff recommendation.
Great, thank you. Second? Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Della.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You
Yep.
too.
See you later.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
My apologies for the interruption.
That's all right.
Can I please ask the individual who has joined the meeting as SL to identify themselves and the item that they have attended for?
SL, did you hear that?
If
Am I
you,
saying that again? Sorry.
could you please confirm your name and the item you are attending for?
Oh, apologies. Stephen Lit Vibe Development, 3241, 3247 King, 108 Cameo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, the next application. Tina?
Thank you. This is an application for a reduction of a front yard setback from 4.5 meters to 2.5 meters. And this will allow the construction of a new exterior covered front entry landing and stairs. Staff reviewed the variance in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and are recommending approval.
Great. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or a motion? And the applicant is online here, I take it. Stephanie? Is Stephanie here? There we go. Okay, the applicant's online. Any questions, comments? Motion? Morning.
Good morning.
Bob?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is fairly straightforward, just for a new covered front porch. There's nothing from the region, nothing from the GRCA. Staff is recommending approval with no conditions. So based on that, I move that this application be approved as per the application with no conditions.
Okay, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next application, Tina?
This is an application for 52 Woodland Avenue, and it's a number of variances to permit an additional dwelling unit detached in the rear yard. So there are variances for the lot width, the setback of the dwelling, and parking. And so staff reviewed the variances in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and are recommending approval without conditions.
Okay, I see the applicant is online. We had 4 people registered. I'm not sure which one wants to talk on behalf of this application. Is that, would that be Amelia? No? John?
Well, Simone Thinkform has been our sort of contact person up till now.
Right.
So if he has something
That's
to say,
fine.
maybe he should go first.
That's fine. I just so that we know who to direct things to in case something comes up, because it doesn't really indicate that on my agenda here, that's all. So does anyone have any questions or comments or a motion? Or Scott?
Just had a question for staff. The concept of the ADU is relatively new. I, for one, don't exactly know all the ins and outs of it, but is there a minimum size requirement for an ADU?
Thank you for the questions, Scott. There are no minimum sizes, just a maximum size as it relates to the lot area and size of the primary dwelling, but we do not have a minimum size requirement.
Okay, thank you. Just a follow-up question to the architect. I think the living space will be roughly 270 square feet. Is that going to be large enough to accommodate all the living space for the unit?
Yes, they'll be using anticipated flexible furniture, couch, comes bed kind of thing. It's pretty straightforward. I think it's enough.
Follow up again, there's several windows along the one side yard. I think it's 0.4. Will they be required through the code to be filled in?
No, we'd have to take that to the next step with OBC when we go in for permit. At the moment, I think they're higher. The exposure rate is probably 0 at this point, close to the property line. So we might have to put in glass block.
Okay, I'm just asking about light for the unit. That's all. I was just concerned about light. So
yeah, we would probably lower the 3-foot existing window to bring in more light, or put another one in. So we're just moving on step by step.
okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Or a motion, Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is fairly straightforward. There's 4 variances being requested. Each one of them is minor. So there's nothing from the region, nothing from the GRCA. So I move that this application, A 2022-033, be approved with no conditions.
All right, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next application, Tina.
Yes, the next application is for the property at 99 Keel Street, and it's two minor variances. One for the side yard setback of 0.23 rather than 0.6 for the detached structure, and regulation reduction 0.75 to 0.44 to allow some stairs at the side of the proposed addition. So this is to facilitate a second-story addition to the existing detached dwelling and also permit the conversion of the detached garage into a home business. And staff reviewed the variances in light of the four tests of the Planning Act and felt that it met all four and are recommending approval.
Great, thank you, Tina. What we'll do, there is an applicant, agent, and one person registered in opposition. Our standard procedure is we'll hear or listen to the person or people or person, in this case, in opposition first. That will then give the applicant a chance to address the concerns, and then we'll turn it over to the committee members. So, Lee, you have the floor, sir.
Hey, good morning, sir. Yes, so I'm the property owner. Next door is 95 Keel Street. So we have a apartment building. It's a two-story apartment building, which is very close to the garage. So my understanding is that this application is going to change the garage into a business studio or something like that. And also they have a new add-on at backyard or something like that. So I just want to know if they will have the height or the size change or anything, which if it's possible will affect the view or light of the apartment building I have. That's my question here.
Okay, thank you, Lee.
Yeah, thanks.
Maybe the applicant, which I guess would be Carol speaking on behalf of the applicant, if I'm to assume that correctly, can just give her opinion in that regard.
Okay, thanks for your comments. So Lee, the garage is the one that's right against your apartment building, and it is existing. So that's not going to change anything. The use of it is going to be for the owners of the house. They're going to have the business in there, and the parking is adequate for it. So it won't change. It's not for a rowdy use. It won't change the apartment building use. And the other the addition is it's within so it's farther away. It's set back from the property. Of course, I don't have that number right here on my hand. Maybe I can find it. Well, it's 4 meters to the property line of the original house, and it's an additional about 2.5 meters to the two-story wood frame addition. So it'll be 5 or 6 meters from the property line. So I don't see it impacting. It's actually, and it's not taller than the house. So I wouldn't see it impacting the apartment in any way, because it's basically like the house, only set back further. So
okay, so you mean the I think the garage, yeah, you are right, the garage is more close. I think it's only a few feet away. So the garage, what is they are doing, just use the SAS to convert into a business studio or something. The size and height will not change, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you said, like, do you think that they have enough parking? I think I only have 2 or 3 parks in the driveway. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they have 3 parking spots, and the bylaw is that 1 parking spot per dwelling and then 1 parking spot for the business. So there is actually 3 spots. And because the
Yeah.
business is the people in the house, it doesn't create more, and it's 1 person at a time for the business, so it's not going to
Okay.
create more.
I'm not too worried about the parking, but I just assist, like most of the time they are pretty full parking already. But like, yeah, so if the garage is like will not affect I just want to make sure it will not affect my lighting and the view, then I'm okay.
Great. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lee.
Do the members have any questions, comments, or motions? Scott?
I just had a couple questions to the applicant. Are you able to divulge what the nature of the business for the garage is?
Yeah, it's anesthetic, whatever. I can never say the word.
Aesthetic salon?
Yeah.
Well,
Hair and
lovely. I
nails.
just-
Well, actually, just like something about like planing, microplaning. I don't know. I don't know what
Okay.
these things are, but yeah, pretty non-intrusive.
So
Yeah.
by appointment only?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I was interested in the stairs to the second floor. Normally, when you put an addition on a house, you don't need a stair to a second floor unless you're duplexing it. Is there plans to duplex in the future here?
Yeah. So it's a separate apartment on the second floor. So it's a
Okay.
duplex.
Okay, then I'll have a follow-up to the to staff. Your report says it's for a single detached home. If it becomes a duplex, is the parking going to be sufficient?
If they do duplex the dwelling, we will have to look at parking. And yes, there could be a red flag here on the parking variance, parking within 6 meters of the street.
Okay.
So just for clarification, is it already operating as a duplex, or is the future use intended to be a duplex? Carol, do you know?
It is not currently working as duplex.
All
They're
right.
just adding that. And there is space for 3 parking spots. I sort of show them in the application, but I'm not showing them. I wasn't taking into consideration the 6 meters from the street, but they're definitely, so 6 meters is, so it's from the edge of the street, not from the edge of the property, right? That's what it is for Kitchener. Every town has a different thing for this, but I came up to it recently.
Yes, so the parking should be 6 meters from the street line, which is the property line. It's not the actual street. And so you need one parking space for each dwelling unit, and both parking spaces should be 6 meters from the street. Can be arranged in tandem. You may not need a parking space though for the home business if you don't have any non-resident employees. So that's the only caveat. We're not sure whether you need the variance for parking as it relates to a duplex and home business. It would just depend on whether the home business would have a non-resident employee.
No. So I'm just looking at the plan here, and it's 6.94 meters to the vestibule on the front existing. So basically there's 2 spots that are beyond that. And the third spot is with between the house and the road, but those 2 spots are further back, and absolutely the people who are working in this business live in the house. It's the mother and her daughter. So.
May I say something?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm the owner of the property.
Hi, Luis.
Hi. We are planning on having 2 parking spots on the other side of the house, next to 105. We have the space there, and it will be for 2 if it's within the property line, 3 if it's to the city line, to the street line, sorry.
Yeah, that just confirms what I.
Actually, right now in the driveway, we have parking for 4 cars. But it gets to where the walkway is. I think that's still property of the city. So in our property only, it will be 3 that we have actually, and plus the 2 that we can add.
Hmm. All right, well, you were saying you were planning on parking between your house and 105, which would be to the left. I don't see how you would be able to do that, looking at the plan that we have here. But this application is not for any parking consideration at this point in any event. And if this gets flagged, there'll have to be a further another application to Committee of Adjustments to address parking. Correct, Tina?
That is correct. So if the
Yeah.
future plans are non-resident employee, then we would look at the parking situation. But as it stands right now, there would be sufficient parking for the use that is proposed.
Correct. Okay. Scott?
Yeah, sorry for adding confusion to the application, Mr. Chairman.
That's all
I just
right.
raised
Nope.
it because I thought that there was going to be a duplex involved here, and my follow-up question to the applicant was,
Yep.
if you needed additional parking, is there room inside the house now at the addition for the home business? But I would say probably not, so.
No, good for you
Carry
for
on.
catching that. Good for you for catching that, Scott.
Yep. Okay.
Anyone else? For a motion? Mike?
I'm prepared, based on the comments that have come before us, to move that this application as submitted be approved. I don't think there's need to put any caveats about future use or change of use. And I would, again, move for approval.
All right. Second, Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Tina?
Yes, the next application is for a property at 235 Hyman Street. It's a minor variance to allow a side yard setback of 1.23 meters instead of the required side yard setback of 1.5 meters. And this is to permit the existing building, which is currently a duplex, to be converted into a multiple dwelling with 5 dwelling units. So the setback is related to the existing building. Staff reviewed the variance in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and felt it met all 4 and are recommending approval.
Okay, great. Thank you. No one in opposition, applicants online. I just have a couple quick comments before we proceed. There should be a GRCA fee, a condition for the GRCA fee. And I think personally myself, in order to approve this, opposed to the way that it's structured or it's written, I'm not really comfortable with that when it says generally in accordance with the site plan application be approved. Historically, in the past, the last 22 years I've been here, we've had that as a condition. And I would prefer to see it as a condition, because if that site plan needs to be revised for whatever reason, it's deemed to be revised, we can put a mechanism in there that would let the director of planning revise the site plan without having to come back to Committee of Adjustment, because it's a matter of fact opposed to a condition. So I would suggest that maybe that would be added as another condition. It's conditional in accordance with the site plan application number as stated, which may be subject to the revision with the prior written consent of the director of planning, or minor revision with prior written consent of director of planning. I'm just throwing that out there for comment from my colleagues as well, and we can proceed forward. Is there any questions or comments or motion? Scott?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wholeheartedly agree with you in terms of the wording of the resolution. I'd like to hear from staff, though, as to why that was set up this way.
Tina?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to comment. As we did last meeting, we're trying to structure our decisions or recommendations in a way that can be satisfied by the applicants and not creating that circular motion. So if the wording of the recommendation is that it's generally in accordance with the site plan, that gives the flexibility to staff to ensure that the variance as approved will be in accordance with the site plan. And if there are changes, we can work within that site plan application. the problem with recommending approval conditional on the site plan is that you can never satisfy that condition. So it's making sure that any conditions that we do impose can be satisfied. And if it's put in the recommendation, it makes it not conditional and can be satisfied by the applicant in accordance with that approved site plan.
Personally, I don't see why that condition can't be satisfied. It's always worked that way. I really don't. So that I find very confusing.
It would depend on, sorry.
No.
It would depend on the way you have it worded. So that if it's submission of a site plan, they've already submitted it. If it's approval of a site plan, they can't get approval of the site plan if the variance can't come into effect because it's conditional on approval of a site plan. So it's avoiding that circular
right. So then
motions.
right. Okay, I understand. So then we could just revise that, then just say that it's submitted.
And it has been submitted. So we're processing it. So what we're recommending is that wording of the site plan be incorporated into the recommendation so that so it doesn't have to be satisfied. That the issue is you can't approve a site plan as a condition if it needs the variance to approve the site plan. So it's getting out of the circular chicken and egg situation and just making sure that the recommendation includes approval of the site plan.
Scott?
Will the GRCA fee be dealt with through the site plan approval?
Yes, it will.
So we don't necessarily need that as a condition either.
No, they have to, the fees are required as part of the site plan application as well.
Okay.
Anyone else? Bob?
Okay, seeing no one else is going to jump in, Mr. Chair, I think this is probably a good development. And it is going to be going through site plan. I'm a little concerned with the term generally in accordance because that's a little vague for me. I understand the chicken and the egg concept and problem that you can't have a site plan approved with a variance if the variance requires the site plan. Having said that, I'm prepared, I support this, and I'm prepared to move that this be approved as amended with no conditions.
And if I could jump in, I'm okay if you take out the word generally and just say in accordance with the site plan. I think it doesn't need to be generally. It is in accordance with the site plan application.
I go along with that.
I'm not comfortable with that though, because if there's a change that's deemed to be required on the site plan that might not even be related to this condition this approval doesn't stand. It's not in accordance with that site plan. And that's where, I hear what you're saying about the loop going in circles, but like we've always managed to deal with it on the other basis. And I think if the wording's right, then that leads some flexibility. I don't want to see any applicants having to come back or on a technicality for something that could have been dealt with otherwise. That's my concern. So I'm still not comfortable with it. I really am not.
And I appreciate those concerns.
Yeah, I know. Tina, I'm just trying to think through this. I'm not trying to be difficult, but
no, and we're trying to improve the process for staff and the applicants. And it's been problematic in the past, some of the decisions with being able to satisfy the conditions. In this case, the building's existing, the variance is for side yard setback, and it's not changing. So in accordance with the approved site plan, I think is an appropriate wording for the recommendation and decision. There's nothing else that will change.
Maybe how about if we add to that recommendation, then that may be subject to minor revisions that are acceptable to the director of planning. Then that's maybe amalgamating the two together. So it's not a condition, it's worded that way, but it just leaves a little bit. I just like to see a little bit of flexibility for the applicant. And it's something you never know what it may be. It could be something very simple, but if it's not the same plan that was contemplated, then I don't know I don't know. Scott?
I'm going to further confuse this, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize just because of my history and experience with Committee of Adjustment works. Normally, a resolution actually talks to what the variance is for. And if the variance is for to allow for the conversion of a duplex dwelling to a multiple dwelling, then you're talking about it, but nowhere in here does it even talk about what you're doing, which is a
Right.
problem for me. And that's why you're trying to tie it to the site plan that's under review. Quite
Yes,
frankly, I don't even think the site plan needs to be even referenced. If you were to put in the resolution, it is to allow a setback to allow a duplex to a multiple dwelling. So I think this needs to be taken offline, but
but where you need to tie it to the site plan, Scott, is that if you go for the side yard setback of 1.23 versus a setback of 1.5, we've blanketed that 1.23 across the entire sideline, opposed to being specific to where it would be applicable.
understood, but it normally a resolution would say to allow the conversion of an existing dwelling to a multiple dwelling, and it doesn't say that anywhere in here. It's just, it's tying to a site plan, which actually is proposing to do that, but you have to dig into the site plan. So there's problems here, but I think we can't solve it today. That's what I'm saying.
And I agree with those comments, Scott. The wording should have said what the variance is for, to allow a duplex to 5 units in accordance with the site plan. We have done that in similar reports in that are being reviewed today. So the previous variance, a side yard or front yard reduction to allow, stairs in the front entry. So we should have included that wording in the recommendation to make it more clear. And again, that just relates to different planners writing the reports and such. And so I would be amenable to the wording changed or revised to state that it's to permit the conversion of a duplex to a 5-unit multiple dwelling in accordance with the site plan.
Mr. Chair, and I'm comfortable with that because I'm going to raise the same concern on the next one, because nowhere in the next application does it talk about the number of dwelling units.
Mhm. Right. Okay. Is that a motion, Scott?
I'll
Bob?
make it a motion. I'll make it a motion.
No, I don't know. Bob? before we continue.
If I'm trying to understand this, and I do see some of the confusion, I guess what is being suggested is that the first sentence under the report highlights that the applicant is requesting a variance for side yard setback, et cetera, be included in the recommendation. Is that what we're
Yes.
asking for?
Correct.
Yes,
And what we could do, going on with that sentence, the existing duplex dwelling into a multiple dwelling as per the submitted site plan application.
right.
Okay, well, in that case, I'm in support of this.
Yeah, we're all in support of the application. That's not the problem here. It's just the figuring out the mechanics here. That's really all it is. So so Scott's got a motion on the floor with,
Do you want me to clarify the motion again?
do Scott, yeah.
After the required side yard setback of 1.5 meters to allow the conversion of the existing duplex dwelling to a multiple dwelling, generally in accordance with the site plan. Let's just keep it the way it is, but include those two, include what it's for now. Staff
Okay.
can deal with it at some point in the future.
And then for the future applications, we can work at fine tuning this a little bit. That's all, Tina.
I
So,
agree.
Yeah. All right, motion on the floor. Second, Bob, I guess. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Tina.
Yes, so this is a minor variance application for the properties at 234 to 240 Frederick Street, or the property. Minor variances to permit the development of the property. It's a 35 dwelling unit, 35 dwelling units and some office commercial space. And so variances are for the building height, rear yard setback, and changes variances to the residential parking and non-residential parking rate for the property. Staff reviewed the variances in light of the Fortesta Planning Act and are recommending approval of the variances.
All right, good, thank you. There's a number of people registered in opposition. And I don't know if it's an organized opposition or individual oppositions. Maybe we can have someone try to clarify that for us. So I know how to proceed as far as how to move through this list. The other thing, just for reference, if it's not organized and there's going to be multiple presentations, if we have already heard the issue, we don't need to hear it twice. It's duly noted, and this is a recorded committee. If you feel comfortable or you don't feel comfortable with that, you know, we do welcome the statement that you're in agreement with all what's already been presented, so we can hear it that way as well. So the first person I have is Eric Query, and I'm not sure how you want to proceed. So,
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Just to confirm, my understanding is that they are individual oppositions.
All right.
I do have Mr. Eric Ellis and Daniela Query on the line. I
Great.
believe that they are just in attendance in support of their written opposition that was circulated to the committee.
Okay, then what we'll do then is we'll just proceed down the way that you have it listed. So you know who to bring in and take back out of the room, so it doesn't get too confusing. We don't want too many people in the room at the same time.
Thank you very much.
All right. So that being the case, is that the case, Eric? I see you're still in the room.
Yes, that's the case. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
great.
I imagine many of the points that we would raise would be raised by our fellow community members. So perhaps, yes, we'll stick to our written submission at this time.
All right. Now, where do you live in relationship to the site as well? I think that's pertinent to this committee as we're reviewing these complaints too.
So we're at 11 Clarence Place. We are essentially kitty corner in terms of the adjoining property lines.
Okay, great. Thank you, Eric. Next then would be Paul Royston.
Hello, Mr. Chair.
There you are, Paul. Thanks.
How are you, sir? Yeah, no, happy to be a chance to speak briefly. I don't know if I'm able to share slides or not, but they haven't been
Through you, Mr. Chair. In the registration email circulated, it was indicated that no presentations were permitted.
All right.
No, that's fine. There is a group of people who have gotten together, not as an organized opposition necessarily, but have launched a site called wrongproject.ca, and have some concerns with the build, primarily related to height, to the density, and also to what I would label the squeezing in of a building in a backyard. And so we have some big challenges with that. I know some other people on the call are going to address that, so I won't go specific into any of the details, just those are the overall. We have a petition with 91 residents in the corresponding streets. I live on Clarence Place as well, sort of across from it, and wanted to be brief because I know how these meetings get for you all. I did want to point out for us, the one project we quite like in the neighborhood, where we feel this one is the wrong project, is across the street. It's called the Tivoli. It's been award-winning and has a very different flavor to it, and it is kitty corner to this project at I believe it's Simeon and Frederick, 257 Frederick, I believe is the address. And our question on that really related to is they're trying to put in a building that has these variances that don't necessarily seem minor, and we don't feel that it's an appropriate fit in this. And I'll let some of the other people attending go into more specifics on that. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Can Mr. Royston identify where he lives?
Yes, at 16 Clarence.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
If I could just clarify that individuals are not required to give their street number when indicating their address if there is concern about privacy for the live stream. However, I would further note that we have not received a petition in regards to this matter. If the petition has, clearly states that the individuals signing it were in agreement that their names and street addresses were going to be shared with respect to this matter, perhaps we could quickly note the names of the individuals who signed the petition in opposition, and then Mr. Royston could email the petition to myself or the Committee of Adjustment email address so that we can have it properly recorded as a part of the record for this matter.
Okay, that's poses a slight problem for us as committee members, and I think it's very important when we're hearing these complaints to have a general idea as to where these people reside and how it affects them. So if they don't want to give their address, that's fine. I want to at least know, within a block or some type of description. As to where they
Mr.
reside.
Chair, at wrong project.
Kitty corner, Paul, that's fine with me.
Yeah. And at wrongproject.ca, which is where the entire petition is listed, we list the street names for that exact reason, because of course, we could get names anywhere, but these are all local residents within a very short distance away.
Yeah.
And I will send the link is there as well, but I will send that directly to the COA email address as well.
No, that's fine. But we need to hear it now while we're in this meeting. So
do you want me to list the names?
We don't have time to look it up. And
that's fine. Would you like me to list the names quickly? I have them in front of me if that's valuable. I could do it relatively fast.
I'd like to, as we go through on this list so that we have some relevance to it, I think is what we need. Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Perhaps I'm just tossing this out here, doing a bit of brainstorming here. On the chair's list of applicants and people in opposition, which is sent to the chair, if that document, which is not part of the actual agenda or reports, if that document contained the addresses, would that not satisfy your concerns, Denny?
It would, as long as the other members have the enjoyment of seeing that as well, right?
And I would then suggest as a second part to that, that when staff sends you the list of applicants and either people in support or opposition, so that you know how to run the meeting, if the rest of the committee got that, then I think we've covered it off.
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I would be happy to make that procedural change and share the list of registered meeting participants with the full committee in the future. Just to clarify my comments for those participating, if you are not comfortable noting your house number on the meeting live stream, for the committee's context, the street name would be appreciated, just to give context of your location. And
that's what we're looking for.
To properly capture the petition in the minutes, since it was not received in advance of the meeting, if we wouldn't mind just quickly noting the names and the street names of those who have signed the petition, it would help me to make sure that those individuals were properly captured in the minutes, if the committee is amenable.
Yeah, we just need to know generally. We don't need a specific address. It's just a general note so that we know that the concerns and as such or comments that we're hearing hold much more weight that way, opposed to we've had applications in the past when we've had people in opposition that aren't even in the same neighborhood. It's just how try and sort out the concerns. It has more relevance. That's what we're trying to achieve here. It's not to know where you live specifically.
Mr. Chair, to the specific point, I heard from the clerk that it would be valuable to quickly read them, but I obviously am sensitive of the committee's time, but would be happy to do so right now if that's amenable.
I guess just with the ones that are registered, that's what we need to know, people that are speaking, right? So
we've had 91 people sign our petition, so certainly the process is I apologize for not submitting that in advance. So
yeah. We haven't even received that. Has any of the other members seen that petition? that he's talking about? I haven't even seen that petition.
Through the chair, I can confirm we did not receive the petition in advance of the meeting to be circulated. If so, it was my suggestion that we note the names and addresses.
Yeah.
With respect to Mr. Royston's note about the number of names on the petition, I don't know if it would be within the committee's purview to verbally accept and acknowledge the petition, and then I can include those names on the follow-up with regards to this item. It's just with how the committee, if the committee is willing to kind of accept the petition at this time, considering that we have not received the document.
I don't see how we can without receiving it. I don't think we can. So let's just continue going through with what we've received to date and the people that are registered. When the people that are registered have their opportunity to speak, if they can just tell us generally where they live so that we have an idea as to where they're located and how it would be more meaningful as to the impact on their property and their case being put forward. So that being the case, and let's move on to Dana. Thanks, Paul.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe Dana has joined the meeting at this time.
All right,
We
so
will be-
let's move on to Thompson Tran. Okay, Thompson, you have the floor.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me here?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Thompson Tran. I live at 35 Gordon Avenue, which is less than a third of a block away from the new proposed development. I've got two children. My wife is Dana. She's clearly busy working here. And in terms of our opposition to the project, there's a number of issues for us. Number one, I would say number one is because we have young kids. So the increase of 32 units, and our assumption, of course, is that's going to be either a single or double dwelling. So that would increase it to 70 additional habitats. And then for us, it would be the increased traffic, which is vehicle traffic there for our young kids. We already have people speeding through to miss the lights at Frederick and Lancaster, and cutting through Gordon, making a left on Clarence, and then heading on to Lancaster already as it is. That's the afternoon as well as the morning, which are essentially the most busiest times of the day when the kids are going to school and coming home from school, as everybody's commuting from home. So that for us is a big deal. And then just to go back to the first initial issue for me is that it's 32 units, which are all 500 square feet. I know there's a couple that are 700 square feet. I know for us, we live in a 3-story house and there's 4 of us, and already as it is, as it were, it's too tight, as a growing family. And for us, we know that we've got a major issue with housing affordability. Housing densification is very important to us, and especially for me. I'm an advocate for sustainability and for walkability and the importance of having a dense community in order to facilitate that lifestyle. So yes, we're absolutely about densification. It's important. And as Mr. Royston had indicated, down the street, less than a block away, there is a very, very well-flavored building that has been erected there for several years. And we'd like to see something similar on Frederick to be a little bit more in the community feel, family sense. We understand that developers are all about creating profits for themselves as well as for the community. They want to grow it, but I think it could be done in a more efficient way. So, and there's a couple of other points that I know some of my other community members will speak about.
Oh, great. Thank you, Thompson.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Thompson? Was here? No. All right, Gary is next. Van Natter or Bernice, either. I saw them there a minute ago.
Yes, my apologies, Mr. Chair.
That's no problem. There we go.
Through to the chair, I believe they have joined and are unmuted.
Okay, Gary, you have the floor. Or Bernice, one of the two. I see you have the hand up signal, but we can't hear you. Possibly your mic's not working. I'm not too sure. Okay, there, Gary. I guess what we'll do is there must be a technical problem somewhere. We'll move forward with Charles. And if Gary can sort himself out, then he can rejoin us.
There he is.
There, yeah. Gary, are you there? No. Okay, Charles, you have the floor for right now. Charles? Alexander?
Hello, can you
There
hear
we
me?
go. Yes, I can. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I see Gary was listed there. Should I go forward and then?
Yes, yeah, there's a problem. Obviously, we can't hear him, so
Okay.
you've got the floor.
Okay, yeah, I just have a few points to add. So in regards to the proposed development, I mean, this location is great in that it's near a school, but I do notice that it's only providing 70% of them would be single bedroom premium dwellings. And we're currently in a housing crisis, so I'm concerned it's just going to encourage Airbnb use instead of fostering a stronger community. That is, if they were family residences, you know, we have a school nearby, so I think it's ideal. There could be a better use of the location and the property. I do think that parking from 44 required to 36 is not a minor variance. We heard in the previous variance discussions that, you know, we were talking about one parking space. We're talking about, you know, a difference between 6 parking spots here. That would be quite a number of cars. Obviously, we have 2 other large apartments, so we already have people parking on the streets. So I don't consider that a minor variance. Going through the proposed development as well, a way they have listed to combat or to even get the required or to get the requested 36 is a use of a car lift. So I'm concerned about how loud it might get, especially during the night. And even if it is within decibel level, so I don't think we have heard of a sound test or anything of that nature, but you know, I'm sure as there's wear and tear, it would get louder and throughout the years. And then lastly, for me, just the privacy on my lot. So when I'm in my backyard, I have another apartment, 2 apartment buildings who overlook my backyard. And, you know, you have people on their balconies smoking and just watching. And this proposed development would be right in front of my house. So I'm on Gordon. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. This would be right in front of my location where you have a number of balconies overlooking my my front porch, and as well there would be a rooftop sort of lounging area. So I wouldn't have any outdoor privacy with this instance. That's it for me.
Okay, great. Thanks, Charles. Does anyone have any questions for Charles? No. Yvonne then will be next.
Hello. Sorry, I have a bit of a frog in my throat. So I am a resident of Gordon Avenue. I'm also an architect, and I'm part of this informal group of residents that are opposed to this development. I heard earlier from the committee that the recommendation, that this was presented for recommendation to the committee as it satisfied the criteria of a minor variance request. And I question how that is the case. And I will go through several points. First being the height of the building. The required is 12.2. The developer is seeking 14.2. When we look at the drawings, there is actually a parapet as well as guardrails for this rooftop lounge that create a building height of actually 15.2/15.3 meters in height. When we take into account that this lounge area on the rooftop has also a gazebo-like roof structure that's in line with the mechanical housing, we're actually at 17.5 meters in height. The bylaw indicates that height is that things such as rooftop units, antenna, and chimneys are not counted towards height. It does not explicitly state parapets or, in this case, height of guardrails. And the effect of the increase in height due to guardrails and parapets is such that I believe the intent of the bylaw is not in keeping with the intent of the bylaw, which is to the exclusion of chimneys and antenna, they're minor actually in terms of what they do in terms of casting shadows, etc. So I would challenge the understanding that the height is 14.2, which is what the developer is presenting. And even at 14.2, I question how that is possible for it to be considered a minor variance when it's almost 20% more than what is allowable. If we understand the height to be what it truly is at 15.2, the setback rear yard is calculated based on a formula based on the building height. And so I would, if we allow for building height actually at being 15.2, we actually have a different calculation for what required rear yard is. The requirement for parking is 58, actually 58 parking spaces are required. I heard earlier some comments about what it is, but actually it's 58 parking spaces are required and 43 would be approved. That's a 25% reduction in what's required. In this case, it's amplified by the fact that Gordon Avenue is a dead-end street. We will have numerous cars, as we already do, going up and down the street seeking parking. And when they hit the dead end, they get frustrated and they speed down Gordon to find elsewhere to park. Gordon and Clarence are both be affected. There are many small young children on the street. We are close to a school where they have playmates coming to the neighborhood to play, and this will be of extreme danger to them. We understand that the developer has not submitted a traffic study report for this development, and we feel that approving this minor variance is, well, so minor variance would be putting the would be premature prior to understanding what the traffic impacts would be for the reduction, severe reduction in parking that is being requested. Next point has to do with rear yards. The request for, I can't recall what it was actually. I think it's, sorry, I don't have that information in front of me. The reduction in rear yard, through the intent of the bylaw, rear yards are to create privacy, spacing, reduction of shadowing onto neighboring properties. What is being requested is a reduction in the rear yard that will exacerbate shadowing. It will be crowded, et cetera, mainly because on what the properties that are backing onto this development are historically already non-conforming in terms of their rear yard. They're, I think, at the most 2 meters setback from the property line. So that when we put that against further reduction of rear yard on the neighboring, the requested development, we're getting into a situation where visually and physically, this project is being shoehorned into a postage stamp backyard. Sixth point, sorry, my last point is that we understand that the proposal, and this was brought up earlier, it will include 32 units, 1-bedroom units of approximately 500 square feet each, and then 6 2-bedroom units at approximately 700 square feet each. Albeit that the inclusionary zoning has yet to be passed in the city of Kitchener, there is still a will amongst council and the city for creation of affordable housing and appropriate housing. And this property is within the inclusionary zone. There's no plan, as we understand it, for any sort of affordable housing units, and ultimately inappropriate, we would say, use of the land, given that these are not the housing unit types that this city requires.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone for Yvonne? No? All right. Next one then would be Sherry. Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Is Sherry around or no? Yeah, sure. Yeah, there we go. Okay, Sherry, you have the floor.
Through Mr. Chair, I do believe we have Gary has indicated that he should be able to access his microphone if we are able to hear from his comments at some point.
Yeah, let's hear Sherry first. She's already set up and ready to go. Then you can bring Gary back and then we'll hear Mark, which is the last one.
She's muted.
Sherry, you're muted.
Sorry.
That's all right. There we go.
Okay, we are 15 Clarence Place. It's going to be on our full side yard as well as our full backyard.
Okay.
I agree with everything that Yvonne said. Our biggest concerns are you're going to put up over 46-foot structure, less than 10 feet from our side yard. And with the hydraulics, we're really concerned about the noise. We're also concerned that there's going to be at least 42 vehicles using the driveway across the backyard. And that's going to go on 24/7. Another huge concern we have is the garbage. And they're putting that right in the corner of two properties. And it's deep well garbage system, which when we looked into that, people aren't using them properly. They refuse to open the lids to put the garbage in. They're throwing it on top and they're doing drive-by throwing. So big concerns for us is the whole size of the proposal to us is a concern. We think it could be more appropriate.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Sherry? Scott?
Hi, Sherry. I just wanted to confirm you are the property with the pool in your backyard, correct?
We are.
Okay. Are you not at all concerned about privacy? There appears to be a number of.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. But what we have been told is that because it's the parking structure, we actually will not have any balconies overlooking us.
The way I'm reading the plans, and I'll clarify this with the applicant and staff, looks like levels 2 to 4 also have windows to bedrooms and kitchens overlooking you. So I'll clarify that.
Okay, I did not get that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No. Okay, then we'll move back to Gary. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
Hey, Gary, you have the floor. Are you there, Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it appears that
It's not working.
Matter is still having technical difficulties. I will reach out to him, connect directly, and try to find a different way to connect him to the meeting.
All right, then we'll hear from Mark in the meantime. Hey, Mark.
Hello, how are you guys? Thank you for giving us all the chance to have our say on this project that I know a lot of the neighborhood is very much against. I have to agree with everything Yvonne said and people before, and really my only addition here is on the parking front, that the 36 of the parking spots are supposed to be in a 3-car stacker each. So in my math, that tells me that's 12 different 3-car stackers. If you have your car on the top, you have to somehow facilitate with your neighbors below you to move your car out in order to go get groceries. To me, that's an unreasonable thought on moving your car in and out all the time. And those cars will end up on Gordon Ave, which, by the way, I live at the end of Gordon Ave, at 10 Gordon Ave, across from the park, where lots of children come. You know, we've seen a resurgence of late in our neighborhood. I've lived there for 55 years, since the day I was born. And we've seen a resurgence of little kids using the park, young families being in our neighborhood, kids chasing balls on the street. And as Yvonne said, cars race up and down the street quite often. if they don't use the dead end as a parking spot in itself, which it's not allowed to, it's a truck turnaround. So my concern is that the 36 spots aren't really 36 spots. They are 12 spots with 24 storage spots that people will use. So as much as they're telling us they're going to have 40 plus spots, I don't see how it's 40 spots. And I'd like to see something else in that spot. You know, I've lived in this neighborhood and seen a lot of beautiful old homes ruined over my 50 years of living there. What's happening to this spot being a nice empty lot and then parking this huge cube right behind a beautiful old home, one of the only ones left on our side of King Street, takes away from our history. And I think it should be not allowed. And I agree with the other people. If we had something more like the development across the street from the Acadian, the Tivoli, that's a beautiful use of the space. So I think you guys, whatever your decision is, I guess we live with it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mark. Anyone have any questions for Mark?
Shoot.
Okay, Bob?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, to Mark. You do realize, of course, that whatever the decision of this committee is, you do have the opportunity to appeal it.
And they probably will.
I just wanted to make sure that Mark knew and the other people in opposition knew that this could be appealed to the Ontario Tribunal.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. There's no one else and we can't get Gary sorted out. Maybe then if you can bring the applicant, thanks, Mark. If you can bring the applicant online and I will turn it over to my colleagues on the committee. And they can ask questions of the applicant and the and staff. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Would you like me to begin?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So my name is Dave Galbraith. I'm the manager of planning with IBI Group. Here today on behalf of the applicant who are proposing site-specific relief from the bylaw by way of a variance to facilitate the infill development of the subject property. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 4-story apartment building on the north end of 240 Frederick Street, which is currently vacant. The new building will contain a total of 32 units, and through the development, the applicant's looking to retain 2 existing buildings on the site. So this includes 234 Frederick Street, which is a designated heritage property, and then 240 Frederick Street, which is a listed non-designated property, which is also being proposed to be retained by the current concept. Sorry. The applicant has worked closely with planning and heritage staff over the past year to refine the design of the development, to respect the existing heritage buildings and try to develop a design that would be sympathetic to the adjacent neighbors. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah, still getting over COVID. In addition to providing a sympathetic design relative to the heritage buildings, the applicant has proposed a design which aims to complement the surrounding area. It's noted that the site is located at the intersection of Frederick and Gordon Ave, which is within close walking distance of downtown, LRT stops, and a range of institutional uses and amenities. The site is directly located across the street from a 17-story apartment building located at the corner of Frederick and Gordon, as well as a 3-story walk-up apartment kitty corner to the site. To the north, as you had heard, is a neighborhood primarily comprised of single detached dwellings and converted dwellings, duplexes, and the like. Recognizing that the building will create new massing within an existing neighborhood, the building has been designed to have primary overlook onto Gordon Ave. No balconies are proposed on the western facade of the building in order to reduce overlook to neighbors to the west. As shown on the western elevation, windows and glazing has been minimized to the extent possible while still maintaining conformity with the building code to minimize overlook onto the west. Likewise, the applicant's proposing to retain a large cedar hedgerow on the northern property line, which will provide a visual buffer to buildings to the north. It's also noted that the rooftop amenity area that is proposed on the building is situated towards Gordon Ave, again, to minimize overlook to the north and west. In order to permit the proposed development, a variance is being requested with regards to 3 matters. Firstly, a variance is proposed to permit a building height of 14.5 meters instead of the maximum permitted building height of 12.2. As detailed in my planning report that was submitted as part of the application, the existing zoning does contemplate a building height of 12.2 meters already, which equates to a 4-story building with a typical floor-to-floor height of about 3 meters. From that regard, the principle of the use of a 4-story building has already been established by the zoning bylaw, but the additional height is being proposed for a couple of reasons. Firstly, and the primary reason is just in response to conventional urban design guidelines that recommend or require taller ground floors for architectural and pragmatic purposes. Quite often cities are requiring these now in order to allow for flexibility in the future programming of these spaces in the future. A taller ground floor height is also being proposed to facilitate the parking stackers, which require additional clearance for stacking of cars. In my opinion, and for the reasons set out in my cover letter, this variance maintains the general purpose and intent of both the secondary plan and zoning bylaw, as functionally it will still limit the height of new buildings to 4 stories. A variance is also being proposed to permit a rear yard setback of 5.2 meters instead of the required 7.5 meters. It's my opinion that this variance satisfies the 4 tests of the minor variance, again, as set out in my planning report. It's noted that the relief for the northern setback, which abuts the functional side yards of 19 and 21 Clarence. The buildings on these adjacent properties have been constructed in close proximity to my client's lands and do not contain a functional rear yard with outdoor amenity space, but rather the sides or rear of the buildings, which don't allow for outdoor enjoyment in those areas in between. Accordingly, the setback reduction is not anticipated to generate adverse impacts on these areas for the properties that are abutting the rear yard setback. And I do note that no relief from the setback requirements for the side lot yard are being proposed. Finally, a variance is also being requested to permit a site-specific parking ratio for the site. Specifically, the request is to permit 1 parking space per dwelling unit and to allow for an office or non-residential parking ratio of 1 parking space per 65 square meters. And that parking rate is specific to 234 Frederick, which is a converted building already that has some office uses within it. In my opinion, this variance satisfies the 4 tests set in the Planning Act, as the rates proposed are in general alignment with the parking rates set out in the city's new zoning bylaw, which would require 1 space per unit for residential units. I have been taking notes during the delegations this morning too, and if it would assist the committee, I can provide a quick response to some of the comments that were raised. So firstly, with regards to traffic, it was noted correctly so that no transportation impact study was required, but it was prepared for this development. And the rationale behind that is it didn't meet the minimum technical thresholds of the city or the region. And Mr. Dave Seller is here to confirm that from the city's perspective. So it wasn't requested by either the city or the region. From a traffic perspective, though, it is noted that right now there are 2 driveways going into the property. As a result of this development, there will be one consolidated entrance off of Frederick Street. And that was very intentional from a design perspective. We're looking to minimize traffic onto Gordon Ave and keep it off of Frederick, which is a major regional road. There was also a parking study completed for the development, which substantiates the parking ratios proposed. With regards to unit size, there were a number of comments on the proposed unit size and mix. Again, this is not something that's before the committee for review, but I will comment on it today that the current proposal proposes 1 and 2 bedroom suites. But it's also noted that the existing building at 240 Frederick Street is going to be triplexed through this overall development, and these will be larger units, and it's anticipated that each of the 3 will be 2 or 3 bedrooms, but they'll be larger units. So there is some larger unit types in here, and I would note too that even though 500 and 700 square feet seems small, that is not small for many of the development applications that are currently coming forward in the city right now. These aren't micro units. These are livable 1 and 2 bedroom suites. With regard to building height, I saw that there was a question of how the building height was calculated. This is something that we have worked closely with staff on, and we have confirmed that what the variance is requesting in terms of building height is actually what is required for the development. The top level does contain mechanical equipment, but the city's bylaw does not include that within the overall calculation. There's also a rooftop amenity area on that level, but it does not factor into the calculation in accordance with the city's bylaw. And then finally, a couple people had suggested that it's their opinion that this was a shoehorn development, and I would contest that a little bit, actually quite strongly in this case, as considerable efforts have been undertaken to preserve the heritage buildings on the site, both the designated and the listed non-designated. The use of the site, the principle of the use of the site is long-standing. It's been established for the property since the 80s in both the secondary plan and in the zoning bylaw. Apartments have been contemplated. They've never been constructed here, but the bylaw has established that as a permitted use for a long time. And so what we're trying to accomplish here is a development that is balancing these priorities, right? If not trying to push in too much height. Again, we see a 17-story building across the street. We're not pushing for that kind of density on the site. We're trying to facilitate a context-appropriate development, which we think we have prepared as part of our design work to date. And then finally, on the matter of noise, it is noted that we do have parking stackers in the development. We will be reviewing that with the city and the region. A noise study will be required prior to condominium application, which this development is going through. And there are technical thresholds from the region and ministry that will have to be maintained. If there are issues with maintenance in the future, that becomes a bylaw issue where residents can report to the city if there's exceedances, and then it becomes the responsibility of the condominium corporation in the future to maintain these structures and ensure that noise limits are being maintained into the future. So again, I thank you for the opportunity to provide a delegation this morning, and I am available for any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you, thank you, Dave. I will hand this over now to the members of the committee. Just to remind everyone that we're here to consider 3 points, 3 revisions. Does anyone have any questions? Comments, Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got lots of questions for staff, but I've got a couple for the applicant as well. I'm glad you clarified, Mr. Galbraith, that 35 units are actually being proposed here, 3 in one of the existing heritage structures. Where will those 3 units park?
So they will, through you, Mr. Chair, parking will be provided in the parking structure, and parking spaces are proposed to be provided as unbundled. So it could be any of the the occupants of the condo building or the triplex would have access to that structure.
Okay, so the 6 spaces that are surface out the back are simply visitor and for the office, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Has your team ever had a project involving the car lift scheme?
I have had a number of projects with them proposed. I have seen them implemented for other projects. I haven't seen one through to construction for one of my own projects, but this applicant has contemplated them in some of his other projects, but we haven't reached that point yet. But I know there are a couple within the city of Kitchener already constructed. Maybe Tina or Mr. Seller could speak to that. I can't point to the specific example, but I do know that there are a number of examples locally as well as across Canada.
Okay, I will follow up with staff on that one as well. I raised the question, staff, only because of functionality. I share the concern of one of the residents named Mark. I think there are really only 12 accessible spaces within the building and 24 that are stacked. I'm concerned about the functionality during peak periods, for example, 8 to 9 in the morning and at night when multiple residents are trying to access their cars. So I'll make that point as well. Just a quick question on your report, Mr. Galbraith. You talk about a 5th level in your report, levels 1 through 5. The residents have raised concerns about what's on the roof. Can you clarify again what's up there? There's a large service room space that doesn't seem to be identified for anything.
Yeah, so on the rooftop level, there is a service space proposed currently. That would be for your mechanical system for the development. Right now it is shown as that massing, but through the site plan process and detailed design, it's very possible that that could be reduced if the space isn't actually required. But again, you get to that through the detailed design and permit stage once mechanical engineers and structural engineers provide their inputs to the design. But that structural room would be for the mechanical system for the development.
Okay, I just had one other question, because your planning report also talked about the fact that with the exception of the one rear yard, you technically meet all the yard requirements, but wouldn't you say that because this particular building faces Gordon Street, the rear of the building is only 3 meters away from the lady with the pool, and you have a number of windows facing that yard? Can you confirm that on levels 2 to 4, there are in fact bedroom and dining room windows or kitchen windows facing that yard?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there are bedrooms and bathroom windows facing over that yard. For this site, the definition of rear yard in the bylaw is for the north property line, measured from Frederick Street. So again, you determine your rear yard requirements based off of what the legal frontage is, and in this case, it's off of Frederick. I would also note that the building location along Gordon Street and the setback from Gordon Street, we were originally we proposed a lesser setback from Gordon Street to provide a greater setback to that property, but it was determined in consultation with heritage staff that having the building set back a little bit further to maintain the heritage elements of the Gordon Street streetscape would be preferable in this location.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have lots for staff, but I'll let the other members have questions for Mr. Galbraith if necessary.
Anything, Bob or Mike?
Nothing for the applicant.
Okay.
No, Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions for the applicant. I do have some comments that I'll bring forward in a few minutes.
Okay, Scott, do you want to have questions for the staff then?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes,
Mr. Chair, if I may,
yeah.
I apologize for interrupting. I do have Gary on the line if we might quickly hear his opposition.
Yeah, all right.
Gary?
Yes, can they hear me now or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Listen, guys, I ended up sending a document in writing opposing this. Did you folks get this, or do I have to read this in?
Yes, I can confirm that your opposition was circulated to the committee.
Okay.
Now, is it necessary to go over all the points or not?
If
We've already heard the points, Gary. It's not necessary, but I don't know if you know if we've heard them or not before. If you want to just briefly go through it, I guess you can.
Well, if I read the document to you, then everyone knows what I'm talking about, just in case it was missed. Bernice and I are property owners at 44 Gordon Avenue and have lived here since 1978. We have several concerns about the proposed development at 240-234 Frederick Street. The northwest corner of this property is approximately 40 meters from our front door. The property at 240 at Frederick Street has been a single dwelling as long as I can remember, and I think it was probably built around 1890. It is a large home with approximately 4,500 square foot. It has been meticulously maintained by the previous owner on the exterior, preserving its historical significance. It is my understanding that this home has recently made duplex, and I'm hearing that via developer here it's actually triplex. The developer, of course, proposes to amalgamate the properties at 240-234 Frederick Street and tear down the existing garage in order to accommodate an oversized 4-story apartment building, which will front onto Gordon Avenue. In order to accomplish this, the developer is asking for a reduced setback from Gordon Avenue, with the west side of the building encroaching on the properties of 25, 19, 15, and 11 Clarence Place. The structure the developer is asking for an amendment to height restrictions, which you've already heard, and has understated the true height of the structure by excluding the mechanical house, which sits on top of this building. The current plan is for a 4-story apartment building, which will include 32 units. 22 of these will be 1-bedroom, 500 square foot apartments. Developer states that the site will allow for 36 parking spaces at the rear of the building. He plans on using a car stacking method at the rear. Is this an elevator type device which will lift cars to the upper level? If so, will the mechanical noise interfere with the lawful enjoyment of property to those around the structure? In the most recent proposal, as noted, they are stating that they will allow overflow parking at the rear of 234 Frederick Street. Will there be enough parking spaces for all? Or will the overflow and visitors be forced to park on adjacent streets, which are already has limited room? The entrance to this new structure will be a driveway between the two homes at 240 and 234 Frederick Street. The secondary entrance exit is on the south side of 234 Frederick Street. What sort of impact will this have with additional vehicular traffic entering or exiting onto a major arterial street? We have Sotheby Elementary School located within 400 meters of these driveways. This is a busy corridor during peak hour traffic. It is a safety concern for pedestrians and little people going to and from school. Has there been a recent traffic study on Frederick Street, Gordon Avenue, and Clarence Place? Several young families with children have recently moved into residential homes on Gordon Avenue and Clarence Place. Both of these streets connect with Lancaster and Frederick Street and are being used as shortcuts for those wishing to circumvent the traffic signal at Frederick and Lancaster streets. This presents a huge safety concern for residents and children living in the immediate area. Will this new building impact residents with occupants using Clarence to Gordon to Frederick in order to enter the driveway between 240 and 234 Frederick Street? We currently have a 17-story apartment building at the corner of Frederick and Gordon and a 3-story apartment at 50 Gordon Avenue. Both of these buildings overshadow homes on the north side of Gordon Avenue and adjacent homes on Peganot, taking away mid-morning sun and privacy from peering eyes. What sort of shadow will a 57-foot structure cast on surrounding homes on Clarence Place and Gordon Avenue? The proposed building encroaches on properties on Clarence Place. I have noted that balconies project from the main structure. This is a further encroachment on neighboring properties. I have concerns about the lack of consultation with those in the Central Frederick District who have had no say in this proposal. This is a developer who is using the guise of affordable, attainable housing when making his presentation. Let's do the math, folks. 22 one-bedroom units represent 68.75% of the building's capacity. The remaining 10 two-bedroom units will represent 31.25% of the building. Does this really address affordable housing, or are they investment opportunities for those who wish to turn them into Airbnbs? The aesthetics of this building is not in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. Most homes along Clarence Place and Gordon Avenue were built between 1890 and 1922. There is a certain symmetry with the porches in front of the homes aligning with others on the street. I urge the committee to look at this presentation closely. The developer has completely ignored the architectural details of the surrounding homes and created an oversized monstrosity, which is totally out of character with the rest of the neighborhood. The developer must be mindful and respectful of the zoning bylaws with regards to building heights, setbacks, and encroachments on surrounding properties. These are not minor variants. It is a blatant disregard for the rules and zoning bylaws which were created intentionally for further development that is complementary to the surrounding homes. Unfortunately, this developer is playing a game of monopoly at the expense of others. We acknowledge that there is a good-sized property lot at the rear of 240 Frederick Street, which fronts onto Gordon Avenue. This lot could be subdivided into individual residential lots, or would support a medium low density townhouse development similar to 28 Aaron Street West. We are opposed to the minor variances as presented. And there's been a whole bunch of concerns raised by others, and in particular service vehicles coming into the rear lot, i.e. garbage trucks, etc. And there will also be some impact with lighting at the back of the apartment building, affecting the privacy of those on Clarence Place. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Anyone have any questions for Gary? No? Okay, thank you. Scott, back to you.
I apologize through the chair if I might be allowed to make one more short interruption.
Sure.
I have received opposition about the petition, and I would like to note for the record that the committee's decision was not to receive the petition. Staff were sent a link to the petition after this item had started to be considered and after the meeting had begun. However, staff have had the opportunity to review the document, and I would like to assure the committee that unfortunately, the full contact information was not noted for the interested parties listed. And so the document would not have constituted a valid means of participation for those individuals, unfortunately. And so I just wanted to share that reassurance for the committee that no interested parties had been missed in the consideration of this item.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Sarah. All right, Scott.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be very brief. I'm very, or have been supportive of staff with the new zoning bylaw and the parking ratios. This report, though, mentioned that it is not, it's generally in line with the new bylaw, but it doesn't quite meet it. Could someone on staff tell me how deficient we are from the new zoning bylaw for parking?
I'll jump in and answer that with notes that I received from the file planner. So in the new bylaw, the parking requirement would be 47 spaces and the parking provided is 42.
Okay, so we're 5 short.
Yes.
Okay. And just clarify for me, the lot line separating, I believe it's, I think it's 15 or 17. Yes, 15 Clarence is technically a side lot line because the dimension along Gordon Street is about 2 meters longer than Frederick Street. If it was reversed, that particular lot line would be the rear lot line, correct?
Yeah, so the front lot line was determined to be Frederick Street. And so the side lot line, so exterior side lot line abutting a street would be Gordon, and then the interior would be abutting the property on Clarence.
Okay. And maybe someone from staff can talk about the car lift situation, because from my look at this application, there are 18 easily accessible parking spaces and 24 plus or minus that will have to be accessed through the car lift. I'm very worried about functionality of the site during peak demand periods for parking spaces.
Dave?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can talk to that briefly. I just want to bring this up right up front. I work on a lot of different site plan applications, but unfortunately I didn't review this one. So there are different types of vehicle stackers available, but I'm not sure which one this is. They have some where they shift. They have some where they move up and down to get your vehicle. I made a note here as well. There are a couple locations where we have approved them. There's a property on David Street and also on King Street East by Cedar Street also as well that we've approved them. There was a question about people having to wait. Yes, people will probably have to wait. They're probably going to have to build that into their time when they want to go somewhere. It's not going to be where you go and you get your parking space immediately as you would if it was just a surface lot and everybody parked on the surface. Now, I don't know if can I go through and answer some of the questions that were raised, or I have a couple here that, yeah, I thought, so one of them was there's increased traffic going to happen because of this development. Even though a traffic impact study wasn't completed, one of the reasons is that the amount of traffic being generated by the development is going to be negligible. Based roughly on the 35 units, you're going to get maybe 15 to 14 trips in the AM and PM peak hour. And that, roughly works out to be around 1 vehicle around every 4 minutes, which is very minor. It also was noted that there's only going to be access off the regional road of Frederick Street, and there won't be any access off of Gordon Street. The site will be providing visitor parking on site, and it will also be shared with the office use. So the way that works is that when the office is up and running during the week, generally you don't have a lot of visitors coming to the site. And when the office is closed during the day and on the weekends, all the parking spaces would be open for visitor parking on site. So that I just want to make it clear that there is visitor parking going to be provided on site. It was also noted that the parking is unbundled, and which which basically means that anybody coming to the site and wanting to purchase a unit will have an understanding that there potentially may not be a parking space for you. So people going in here purchasing a unit will know whether they want to purchase a parking space for themselves or if they don't want to purchase one. So they have that savings if they choose not to purchase a space with the development. There's also a comment made about the 42 parking spaces that they're almost going to be used all at the same time. That's not the case. You just have to look at anywhere you live. When people go to work in the morning, not everybody leaves at the exact same time. It's staggered. And that's why there's only so many trips happening in the AM and PM peak. It's not 42 trips are coming and going from the site within that time period. I also, from my understanding, is that the stackable parking system, the ones that I've worked on, they've all had to be enclosed. It's not like an open air concept where you're like sort of like a parking garage where the air flows through and you don't need any ventilation or anything. It'll be closed, enclosed. So that should help with if there is any noise issues, that should help with that. I'm just going through my notes here.
Yeah, sure, Dave.
There was another one, a comment about additional traffic going along Gordon Street, going to the dead end. I don't see people exiting this site, turning left on Frederick, turning left on Gordon, and then turning left again on Clarence to go to Lancaster. I see them coming out, making a right-hand turn, going to Lancaster, and if they're going to go up Lancaster, there's no right on red permitted, so they'll have to wait, and then they'll make their turn. So I don't envision a lot of people from this development going to the dead end of Gordon Street and having to turn around. And if they do, it'll be a one-off where they do it, they make that mistake and go, oh, well, I can't do this, and I'm not going to make 3 lefts just to go up Lancaster Street. I just don't see that happening. It's just too difficult to make that turning movement to go up Lancaster if they plan on doing that. And I also wanted to note that Gordon Avenue also does have on-street parking permitted for a 2-hour period. So there is the potential that you could have people parking on there who aren't even from the development that are using the on-street parking. So the on-street parking is available for anybody. So if someone chose to park there from the development within that 2-hour time period and they found themselves a space, they can do so just like anybody else in the neighborhood. And I think if people are feeling that the people are abusing that 2-hour time limit, they can contact our bylaw enforcement group and notify them about that. I think that covers off, everything, unless there are more questions for myself. I'll do my best to answer them. I should, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but when staff reviewed the parking justification, we supported the parking reduction because the site also is going to be providing Class A bicycle parking, whether it's going to be in an accessory building outside or an internal secure in the building. That's also something that is in the new zoning bylaw, and they are going to be providing that as well. And it'll be a well-lit area to promote people to use the cycling that's in the area.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that it, Dave? Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That clarifies quite a bit regarding the parking. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Scott?
Sorry, Denny. I just
That's all right.
Two quick more comment or questions for staff, and then I have lots of comments before the decision is made. Can staff, I think I've seen it in other zones where if you have windows to a habitable room facing someone's yard, that the setback must be more than 3 meters. Have I seen that, or am I thinking about other zoning bylaws?
It's not in our zoning bylaw, no.
Okay. And what is the status of the site plan?
The status of the site plan is that it's currently under review, so it has not received approval in principle. It's still in a review stage.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of just comments prefacing the decision or the discussion, further discussion on this. As the planning staff knows, infill developments are always tricky. It's just the nature of the issue. I'm glad to see that the developer is maintaining the two beautiful homes on Frederick Street. That is a very big positive in my mind for this development or proposed development. In opposition to that, just as a human being, when 91 people sign a petition, which we don't have, but going on good faith that that petition was signed by 91 people, that's a red flag to me. When 91 people in a small neighborhood have objections, and some of them are valid and some are outside of the scope of the Committee of Adjustment, such as Airbnbs. We have no jurisdiction over that. But overall, I've heard the concerns from the neighbors, and some, as I said, some are valid, some are out of the realm of this organization. But overall, I think that this is probably going to be a positive development. The variances that have been asked for are minor, both in consideration of the current bylaw and the proposed or the upcoming bylaw. So the variances are minor, and that's where our scope of our participation in this process is for the variances. So I'm, when it comes down to the time to vote on this, Mr. Chair, with a little bit of fence sitting, I will be in support of this development.
Great. Okay, thanks, Bob. Just to save some time here, I concur with what you've just said, and I will be in support of it as well. I think it's a very well thought through plan, and I can see that they've spent a lot of time with staff to work things out, and I think it's a good development. Scott.
Yeah, just to add to the commentary, I won't be supporting one of the variances. I like the development in that they have respected the heritage on this property. I think that's wonderful. I fully support intensification and infill. I'm just at a loss for the intensity of this particular one. I have no objection to the height variance. I think staff contemplate a 4-story structure here, and that's what we've got. I have no objection to what I consider to be a side yard, which would be the northerly lot line. But I have significant problems with the parking right now. I can only see 18 functional parking spaces on this site for what amounts to 35 units and an office building. Yes, there is a car lift, but I see problems with that. And I have significant concerns with privacy for the residents next door, especially the lady with the pool. I think there could be a redesign of this with a few less units, some additional spatial separation, more surface parking or under building parking, and it would look lovely in the neighborhood. So I will not be supporting the full recommendation.
Bob?
A question for Mr. Hanna. Are you suggesting that this be deferred until some of the wrinkles can be ironed out?
No, I think what he's suggesting is that we do a vote on the 3 points separately. Correct, Scott?
Yeah, and I would also comment, and we had this on the previous application, that the way the resolution is structured, it does not talk at all about what is being proposed. And I have a huge problem with that. Somewhere in this resolution, it should be to allow a 32-unit 4-story apartment building as a permitted use on the site. But to say it's generally in accordance with the site plan could change and the residents would have no say on that. So I'm just pointing that out to the committee who wants to support this, but the resolution right now makes no sense.
I don't disagree with you on that, Scott, not at all. Did you have anything, Mike, or no?
Well, just to that point, does the way that this application is presented allow us to do what we did on the previous application and insert the first line from the report highlights that facilitate the redevelopment of the site as a mixed-use site with commercial space and 35 dwelling units? Is that not what we did on Hyman?
Yes. And Tina, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you. I would agree. Similar to the last application, and in future, we will structure the wording differently in our recommendations, but the variances should be tied to particular proposals. So I think to add the wording as Mike has suggested, after the variances to facilitate the development of a mixed-use site with commercial and 35 dwelling units in accordance with the site plan application be approved, if you so want to approve the application.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have no, I know where this is headed, and so there's no reason to separate all the clauses. You know where I'm sitting.
So you're, okay. So who wants to make a recommendation or a motion? Mike?
I'm prepared to make a motion for approval of this application as submitted with a minor change to the usage comment, and we'll be supporting a vote in favor.
All right, second. Opposed? Bob, you're opposed?
Well, sorry for my confusion here. I see the benefit of what the developer is proposing, but the impact on an old neighborhood is, I'm not going to use, well, other people have used the term, I won't. This is just a little too intense. The parking is going to be a problem. No, I'm not, I don't know. I'm 50-50 on this. So that's why I had suggested a deferral, that some of these issues be resolved or at least discussed between the developer and the staff and the neighborhood. No, at this point, I think it needs to be discussed further. They can maybe reapply. So I'm not going to support this as it is now.
So you're opposed and I'm second, I'm in agreement. So it's a split decision.
How do we do that one, Mr. Chair?
Hi, Sarah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It is my understanding that in the case of a tie vote,
Refusal.
the matter is considered refused.
Yeah. But what it would be is it's the way that it works is if the matter would have been, if the motion would have been a refusal and it's a split decision, it would have been approved. But the motion was a for approval and it's a split decision, so it's refused. It goes opposite of what the motion was. That's the way I've always been had it explained to me through legal over the years in a situation like this. So that's the way it goes. It's refused. Yeah, Scott.
Just a question for legislative services. The motion was put on the floor, but there was no seconder. Can you, as the chair, second the motion? Because if not, we'll have to put a new motion on the floor that can have a mover and a seconder, and then a vote. Just curious.
That's true. I don't know. Yeah, true enough.
Through you, Mr. Hanna,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, to member Hanna. My understanding is that the chair is a full voting member, and so given the circumstances where none of the other members felt inclined to second the motion, a motion that has no seconder is also considered failed or lost. So I think that the outcome in this circumstance would be the same, but I was inclined to accept the chair's seconding from a procedural perspective.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I feel that there will be enough parking, and I don't think it'll be a problem. I've just seen what's going on in the market, so that's the way why I voted the way that I did, and it's my understanding through the industry, through a number of developers that I'm aware of, that in most cases the parking spaces aren't even being purchased with the units because people are getting away from the parking. they're using public transit or they're locating in downtown cores, which is where this is. And they are working in downtown cores. So parking is being less relevant.
Mr. Chair, if I can just jump in on that comment of yours.
Yeah.
That information would have been, I think, applicable through the traffic department. That a study indicating this, other than just our conversations here via the computer. So again, this comes to an almost, there's missing information here on this application. The petition, which was a very important part of this, the issue of changing and evolving parking trends within the downtown core would have been appropriate for this application. And based on those two things is why I am really not in support of this. So maybe in the future moving forward, some of these positions brought forward both by the developer and by the adjacent neighbors, it should have been in this staff report, and it isn't. That's my comment as to why I'm not in support.
Right. All right. I think this one.
So where, Mr. Chair, where do we sit now? So this has been a split vote.
Yep, split vote. Split vote, and it's resulting in a refusal.
So they can redesign the site and do another application?
I would imagine so. You can't.
Okay.
apply to-
Two
you
options
can't
here,
apply
Mr.
for the
Chairman.
same
There's
thing.
an appeal.
Or they can actually, they can appeal it.
Yeah, appeal or a redesign. So we'll see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah, appeal or redesign.
Okay.
Okay. All right, next application. Tina, you're on.
You get a lunch break?
No.
Okay, not before we hear the rest of the applications. Next application is for 71 Tradewinds Place. This is a minor variance request to reduce the required rear yard from 7.5 to 5.93. And this is to allow the construction of a patio roof at the rear of the dwelling. So they'll be removing the deck and constructing a patio in its place with a roof over top. Staff reviewed the drawings and the variance in light of the forecast of the Planning Act and are recommending approval.
All right, this is a fairly straightforward application, and I see in this case, Madison, I think, has worded the recommendation in a manner that works for all. Good job there. Thank you very much. And do I have any comments, motion? Scott?
I will move the recommendation of staff, if that's okay.
Yep, second. Bob, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Approved. All right.
Thank you.
Next application.
Okay, this is an application for the properties at 3241 to 3247 King Street East and 108 Cameo Drive. There are a number of minor variances requested to facilitate the development of the property with 3 towers. And they will contain, I'm going to clarify, 946 dwelling units. So the variances have been requested to facilitate that number of dwelling units, 946. I know there was a little, some typos in the staff report. So the variances will facilitate the development of 3 towers containing 946 dwelling units, and a site plan application has been submitted. So in accordance with that site plan application, and staff have reviewed the variances in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and note that they do meet those tests and are recommending approval.
Okay. Once again, there's a number of people registered in opposition. We'll go through the list of the people in opposition first, as it's recorded on my registry sheet here. And if someone has said something or made the same point, we don't need to hear it again, don't want to hear it again, actually. And you can say that you reiterate what's already been said. If you'd like to go on record in that regard, that's great. But we don't need to hear the same thing twice. Once we get through all this, I'll give If any of my colleagues have any questions at the end of each person's presentation, just raise your hand and then I'll let you ask them directly at that point, which makes more sense. And then we'll go on to the applicant and staff. So first one up is Karen.
Morning, Chair. My name is Karen Lee, and I live at 3227 King Street East at the Regency Building. I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of other residents at the Regency who are unable to attend due to work or they're seniors and they don't really know how to use Zoom. So I do not believe it's a minor variance zoning bylaw for the properties at 3241 and 3247 King Street East and 108 Cameo Drive. First point is the construction of 3 residential towers. 3 buildings on the current site is going to create a lot of issues, like how many stories are these towers and how many units are in each of these 3 towers. With the building of these 3 towers, it's going to increase the noise pollution as it's currently like a quiet area between the Regency and Cameo. And it's also going to increase a lot of traffic. The second issue is the front yard setback of 4 meters on King Street rather than the required 39 meters. To me is a major concern. The traffic is really busy, especially during rush hour. And if this variance is going to pass, it's going to make it very difficult to see oncoming traffic. It'll also ruin like the curb appeal for both the Regency and Cameo, as our properties are 39 meters back from the street. The second concern is the parking rate of 894 spaces rather than 1422 spaces, and visitor parking spaces of 85 spaces rather than 284 spaces. It's a concern as the residents often have like another vehicle, and therefore they will require an additional parking spot. So with the reduced amount of parking spots, what if they start using parking spots at the Regency or Cameo or other neighboring properties, right? Another concern was the easterly setback, 1.5 meters rather than 6 meters, westerly setback of 4.5 meters rather than the 6 meters, and the rear 3 meters from 7.5. To me, I feel like with this new development, especially with 3 huge buildings in such a small property, it's going to overpower like all the neighboring properties. And with the current bylaws, it will allow more privacy, and the space will allow for lesser noise between these 3 with the 3 new building towers. So to me, I object to these considered minor variances because it's just going to ruin the properties of Regency and Cameo, and it's just we're unsure of how many units going to be built. It's just going to create a lot of pollution, noise pollution, and it's just a lot of us are worried about them taking space in our parking spots, and as well as making it difficult to make the left-hand turns or right-hand turns because of just the blockage of the front of the King Street East entrance. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Questions, anyone? No. All right. Then next would be Carly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Carly is not present in the meeting at this time.
All right. Then Jennifer.
Unfortunately, Jennifer is not present either.
All right. Hillary.
It has come to my attention that Hillary has also is not
Yeah.
present.
All right. Linda.
Linda is being promoted now.
Okay. All right. Linda, you have the floor.
Ever muted, Denny?
Linda, you're muted. Can you unmute, please?
Sorry, yes.
Yep, there we go. Okay, you have the floor. Where approximately do you reside? Just, we don't need your current address, but.
I'm in Cameo Terrace.
Okay.
And I overlook the construction site. We actually have someone who's speaking on behalf of the owners as they have next door. I have concerns that the building next door hasn't yet received the site plan, obviously, and I believe they should. I have very large concerns about disruption as this is being built. And just the general fact that you're taking 3 properties that are currently covered in trees and grass and paving them over, which environmentally seems to me outrageous. And we have parking concerns, light concerns, all the normal concerns you'd have of an owner whose property is overlooking right now 2 fields and is going to be overlooking a parking garage.
But you say you have someone that's going to address those specific concerns?
We're actually asking for a deferral so that some of these concerns can be addressed before approval is considered.
All right.
Robert's going to be speaking to that.
Robert.
Okay. All right. Is Robert registered? I see a Robert, but it's in support. Is it Robert Gauthier?
Yeah, Robert Gauthier, yes.
Gauthier, I'm sorry. Okay, he's actually in opposition then. They showed
Yeah,
him.
so he should probably speak next on our behalf.
All right, so then you're done. So then we'll bring in Robert then.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Oh, yes, here I am.
There you go.
I couldn't see myself on the list here. Okay. All right. I'm representing the board of directors at Cameo Terrace, which is on the other side from the Regency. There are several things that we are concerned about. Clearly, it's a huge development to put in there, and we are somewhat taken aback at that. But our primary concerns are there's a variance on the easterly side proposed of 1.5 meters from the property line. And you should have received a submission from our corporate lawyer before the meeting today regarding some of these issues. Can you verify that?
Yeah, we received it. Yeah, we did.
Okay. And essentially that 1.5 meters, we are most concerned because it's in the application and in the cover letter, it's quite unclear that there's a 2-story underground parking garage involved. Okay, so there's a construction has to be dug out, as well as a 2-story above ground parking garage, which they do mention casually. The underground parking garage will very closely abut our underground parking garage, which actually is under the driveway at Cameo Terrace. And we are most concerned that this is going to cause problems in the short run and in the long run for our building. We don't want to have the contractors coming through into our wall. So 1.5 meters seems like an awfully short distance. There are a few other things that we do refer to in our letter, and we are asking for a deferral because a deferral would give us a chance to perhaps discuss some of this with the developer or the developer's planner. And so there are a couple of things: confirmation of the appropriate legal boundaries. We have a little question about some of that. Again, the underground parking structure being within 1.5 meters, and looking at the site plan drawings, I confirmed that that is exactly what they're showing there. The above ground structure, we have no elevation structure or no elevation drawings for that. We don't know whether this is an open structure, a closed structure, or what it might be. It does go the entire length of the Cameo Terrace condominium, which just kind of blocks us from our sight lines, and we'll be looking down upon that for some of our units, most of our units on that side of the building. We are also looking for the tree management plan. There are mature trees all along the fence line between us and that property. And we are quite concerned that all of those are going to disappear, and we're going to be in an urban wasteland here. Let's see. We have no receipt of a traffic impact study to confirm suitability of the proposed access roads, access to King Street and so on, and the justification for the parking reduction. There are a couple of other small points that might be of interest to the committee. One is that Cameo Drive, which is building C behind us, is essentially a paved but country road. It has ditches, it has no services to speak of. There's one house on Cameo Road, but there's also Hofstadter Park, which is a well-known baseball diamond in the vicinity. And with the lack of parking at in this proposal, we can see that Cameo Drive is going to become an auxiliary parking lot for the building. The other thing I wanted to point out was that King Street, while indeed it is a regional road, it's a 3-lane regional road, which most of you probably know, with a turn lane down the middle. It is already running at capacity as some parts of the day because of the railway tracks a little farther up, and also because of it's the diversion for Highway 8 if there's a problem there, and so on. There are buses on King Street. There's a rapid bus, and there's also the local bus. But there is no way to get across King Street between Fairview Road and River Road. We're kind of right in the middle of that area. So talking about using buses, I mean, I see people running across there during the day now to catch the bus on the other side. And sometimes it's a close run thing. You know, that's pretty concerning. And all of these things would have to be addressed somewhere along the way. And I don't know that that the developer is going to pay for a new stoplight, or whether he's going to pay for islands in the middle of the road, or what he's going to do. So it seems that these are rather poor considerations. So anyway, as I say, we are asking for a deferral, a 30-day deferral on this approval, that some more consultations can occur, primarily with the digging and the parking garage that's centered right in the middle of this development. There are 3 buildings with a 2-story above ground parking garage plus an amenities pod on top. There seems to be no area for trees or anything else. This is meant to be a project for families. It kind of fails. It's got some green area, but the green area is not even close to any of some of the buildings. So anyway, so we're looking for a 30-day deferral to have further discussion with the developer. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Quick question for you, Robert. Why does it take so long for us to get this letter, like the 5 minutes before the meeting, and ask for a deferral? When did you receive this information?
We received the site plan information because we had to engage a planner. We received the site plan information on Thursday. Friday's a holiday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday's a holiday at City Hall, and here you are.
When did you request the information?
I think we requested it. Requested it last week. I don't know what day they did.
When were you notified?
We were notified.
Just to get the facts straight here, because a deferral is a pretty question of a deferral by someone who's not the applicant is a little bit unusual. So
our notification is not dated.
Tina, do you know when they would have been notified possibly?
Notification is given by Legislative Services, so possibly Sarah would be able to advise.
Through the chair. Property owners within a certain distance of the property receive mail notification. There's also a sign
Yeah.
posted at the property.
Yeah.
And then,
There is no sign at the property.
and then notice is given in the newspaper. The notice for this meeting would have been in the record on April the 1st. And the agenda would have been posted at that time as well, noting this item. And those are our requirements under the Planning Act.
It's
So
mailed out.
less than 20 days then.
Excuse me, Robert. It's mailed out too, is it not?
It is mailed out
When would that have gone out, you know?
at the same time at roughly that the notice in the
April.
record is circulated.
April 1st then.
Yes.
All right.
We did not receive the notification until some days after that, for sure.
Well, it would have went in the mail April 1st is what she's saying, Robert. I'm just trying to determine, because like I said, a request for deferral, if you're not an applicant, it's a little bit unusual. And I just wanted to establish this so that the members of the committee have the facts and the information right. It's, 30 days on a project like this can make a substantial difference. So, okay, that being the case, then I guess the next person would be Brian. Sorry, does anyone have any questions for Robert? No, all right, Brian.
Through the chair, Brian is not on the call at this time.
Okay, and the last one?
I believe that Mr. Core is part of Robert's
Okay.
delegation group, but I would just promote him very quickly to confirm that. Mr. Carr, could you please confirm that you are part of Robert's delegation? If you wouldn't mind unmuting. Through the chair, he's not responding at this time, but
No.
I do have email from him indicating that he's part of Robert's.
All right, so we gave him the opportunity, we'll consider that to be the fact then. And what we'll do now is we'll hear from Pierre. Pierre, if you can walk us through the application so we can get a better understanding of this, please, that would be appreciated. And I think from a lot of the concerns that I've heard, and specifically from Robert, is most of those issues will all be dealt with through the city and staff and site plans and things which is a normal course of action and not done or regulated by neighboring properties. So anyways, you can carry forward.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Pierre Chauvin. I'm a partner at MHBC Planning at Kitchener. I'm the agent on this application. With me is Mr. Litt, Stephen Litt, who is the owner and developer with Vibe Development Corporation. As you've heard, this is a proposed development of 946 rental units. These will be attainable housing rental units, which are, as we all heard, in this housing crisis and desperate need in this community. There are 3 proposed towers, which will be built in phases, obviously, varying in height, 24, 23, and 19 stories respectively, with 2 levels of underground parking and 2.5 above grade. And you've heard about, and I'll speak to the setback relative to the above grade portion of the parking podium. Access is primarily from King Street. There is a secondary access off of Cameo for emergency and just easing circulation. It is a fairly large site, roughly just under 5 acres. And there is a large wooded area off of Cameo that our client also owns, which is part of this property. And the hope is to use that as a part of the amenity space. In addition to you've heard about the rooftop amenity space. They are retaining this green area, the treat area, to provide for additional amenity space for the future residents of this development, and are also even open to opening that up to the general public. But again, we're working through some of those details, as you noted, Mr. Sobalski, through the site plan process to try to work through some of that, the details. We do have approval in principle verbally from the city. We're working through again some of the details. We have been working with staff for several months on this design to come up with a design that staff could support. And what you've seen in your package and your submission, our submissions, is the site plan that staff are supportive of, that meets their tall building guidelines, addresses a number of design considerations, step backs, articulation. Some of those details though will be again still flush through the detailed site plan process, which is where we're heading, including the tree management plan. As you've heard, there are lots of trees on the property, and yes, many will have to be removed. We will be also doing a landscape plan to certainly enhance the landscaping and treatment within the site, as well as on top of the podium. With respect to the design, again, I'll reiterate, it is meant to be a rental housing development. And so in terms of the particular variances, there's essentially 5 of them: front yard, side yard, rear yard, the parking and visitor I've lumped into one, and the density provisions, which relate to the provisions associated with the Freeport pumping station. I'll start with the latter in the sense that that particular provision had a density requirement that was tied to the capacity constraints associated with the Freeport pumping station, which has now been built and operational. And so that essentially removes that particular density constraint. What we are proposing is in compliance with the official plan and zoning requirement of a floor space ratio of 4.0. We're fully compliant in that regard. I should also note there is no height limit in this current R9 zone. And then with respect to the front yard setback, although we are reducing it considerably from what is existing, I would note in the recently approved, council approved zoning bylaw, the new Res 7 zone, which would apply to these lands when in final force and effect, does reduce that front yard setback to 4.5 meters. So we're actually more in compliance with what is being proposed and encouraged by city staff. And also from an urban design perspective of pushing the building mass closer to the public realm. We've through the design of the building as well, we're proposing to articulate with the building as well as materials and step backs on the building to help reduce the presence of the mass within the public realm. So again, just to reiterate, it is what we're proposing with respect to the front yard is very much consistent with the direction that council wants to go with respect to the new zoning. Similarly, the setback, the rear yard setback we're proposing, rear yard in this instance is considered to be cameo. So again, it's acting as it's our secondary frontage. So again, our building to create more of a street presence along that street, we're proposing a similar setback to that frontage. And effectively, that's why we're requesting that particular variance to the rear yard from 7.5 to 4.5. The parking reductions are fully supported by staff. We've prepared a traffic impact study. You've heard concerns about from the delegations with respect to the traffic on King Street. I would note there is a single or a middle left turn lane, dual left turn lane that will help alleviate movements into the site. As I mentioned, we also have a secondary access out to Cameo, which would help alleviate the circulation or improve the circulation through the site. The parking that we're proposing is 880 spaces, which again is more in line with where the new bylaw is going with respect to the parking provisions. We're asking for a parking reduction of 0.93 spaces per unit, whereas the new bylaw requires a requirement of 1 space per unit. So in terms of plain numbers, we're asking for 880 spaces, whereas the new bylaw would require 946 spaces. And similarly with the visitor spaces, the reduction is going from 95, which spaces required under the new bylaw, to 85. I know that's not the bylaw that we're varying, but I'm just pointing these out to illustrate where the council direction is going and the city direction is going with respect to parking reductions. Having said all of that, we are implementing and proposing a number of transportation demand management measures, TDM measures, to encourage different forms of travel and discourage the use of vehicles. So you've heard a lot of these before, unbundled parking, where we charge for the parking. We're going to have a lot of indoor bicycle storage, more than what is required under the new bylaw. We're going to have car share parking, bus passes, so with all those things combined, we believe, and staff have agreed in their review, that the parking reduction is appropriate. And lastly, and what we've heard, I think most about from the delegations relates to the variance to the side yard setback from the 6 meter, I'll call it easterly side yard setback, to the Cameo condo, from 6 to 1.5 rather. Again, the direction in the new bylaw is to reduce that 6 meters to 4.5. So there will be a reduction when that comes into effect. However, it should be noted that at that particular section that we're requesting, and no other parts of the development, we comply everywhere else with respect to the towers. But this particular area is abutting the existing parking area. So it does provide a bit more buffer from our development. We are also just talking about a 2-level parking structure, which will be an open air parking structure. So you're not looking at a wall. And there is 1.5 meters. So yes, there will likely be the need to remove trees, the existing trees there to facilitate the construction, but it does provide enough, that 1.5 meter buffer does provide enough for fencing or some landscaping within that buffer to help alleviate that view. But again, it is only 2 stories at that particular interface. And just to speak to the comment about the constructability, what I would suggest is that our client is not, we're trying to be good neighbors here. We would welcome the opportunity to certainly provide them with our structural drawings and work with them. Granted, and try to walk them through how we're going to design that parking garage in relation to theirs, so that there is no issue with respect to the construction. So that is an open offer to them. We certainly aren't seeking a deferral. We do see the need and recognize the need for housing and want to move this forward as quickly as possible. And I'll let, maybe if you indulge me, I'll let Stephen speak to sort of what they're making applications through CMHC for affordable housing. And that's really what we are hoping to strive. And just lastly, on the comment about parking on other properties, certainly we can't do that. That would be trespassing. We can't be parking in other people's condos or other properties. So, and with respect to parking on the streets, that will be a city bylaw enforcement issue that we would expect that the city would enforce. So with that, I'll just turn it over briefly to Stephen, and those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. So yeah, we welcome to have the discussion as we continue through the process with the neighbors on any of their concerns. We're local. We've got 800 units under production right now, which is great. This project specifically, we have conditional approval under a program called Rental Construction Financing Initiative. It's a mouthful, RCFI, which is a directly funded federal program for mid-market affordable housing. So it's not deeply affordable. It's right in the middle, as Pierre suggested. We're earmarking that this building will have no natural gas to it, so it'll be completely off of petroleum hydrocarbons, which we're really excited about. The rents in this building are targeted to be at 70% of 30% of average household income. So this is exactly what we need in the community. Our hope is that all 3 buildings will be under the same program. So that's the first. And I would just urge to not delay such a project. You've got our personal covenant to work with the neighbors on aesthetics and some of their concerns. They're all valid without a doubt, but we have certain timeframes to hit with under the CMHC program. So we hope to comply. So thanks for everyone's consideration.
Great, thanks, Steve. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Bob.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. To Mr. Litt, you just said something that I had not picked up in the application. That it's going to be heated by, what was the term you used?
It's off of natural gas. So we're trying. We're like, as a rental housing developer, we're not concerned about getting in and out as some of the condo folks are. So I'd personally like to see all of our upcoming projects off of natural gas. So the primary source of heat and cooling for the building will be air source. So completely silent air handling units on the rooftop that exchange heat, cold for heat. It's like a reverse refrigerative cycle. So no gas, which I think is I mean, some will not agree with me, but I think that's the way the world is going in the next 50 years, right? So we're trying to be way ahead of the curve if we can. So
just a comment, Mr. Litt. We've gotten rid of furnace oil and coal. We don't do that anymore. Natural gas is next on the list.
Yeah.
And, I'm quite intrigued by this. So you're basically using heat pumps?
It's heat pumps. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but centralized ones so that they're much more efficient. Yeah. And then, like, naturally in our climate, there'll have to be some backup electricity to support that. So we use, we'll be like heating the water in large storage tanks in the basement off peak when the grid demands. Anyway, I'm getting into far too many details, but we're really trying to green.
I apologize for putting you on the spot. I just thought that was such an innovative idea that I had not seen on any applications in my tenure here at the committee. So I think that's great. I think I do agree with, well, that was my questions. I'll save my comments.
Thank you
for a minute.
Anyone else? Scott.
Just a quick one to the applicant and or staff. On page 190, there's a comment from environmental planning about changes to the site plan may result in the need for further variances. I don't like to deal with variances until approval in principle is been achieved, and the applicant says it has. Can maybe staff tell me what's happening with that comment from environmental planning?
Yes, I can answer that. So environmental planning is reviewing the environmental impact statement at the moment. They have not approved it. They do have some concerns with it that could impact the parking provision. That would be the only variance that it could impact, or not variance, but the only need for a future variance would be parking. Typically, we would like to have that EIS reviewed and good to go. But as the applicant has indicated, there's some timing concerns. And so they're willing to take the risk to have the variances approved in advance of the environmental impact statement, which could impact the parking.
Okay. Another just quick one to the applicant, just so he's aware, I am leaning to supporting this application, but the way the resolution is worded, it allows an easterly side yard setback of 1.5 meters instead of the minimum 6 meters. That could be construed by someone to mean the actual building, but that's a 1.5 meter setback to a 2-level above grade parking structure. I'm wondering if you would support adding that to that 1B clause.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have no issue with that. And while I have the floor, can I help respond to the comment about the environmental?
Sure.
Thank you. We are responding to the comments that we did receive. We did receive verbal, as I said, AIP. There's still some outstanding environmental concerns. I should note none of the features are, or there are no identified features on the property, either from the official plan or any other level of mapping that's available. As I mentioned, we are retaining the woodlot off of Cameo. There is a butternut within that woodlot, which I think was one of the comments that we provide further clarification on its location. So it's things like that that we are responding to. I don't believe that the response or revisions to the tree management plan will necessarily result in any significant change to what we're proposing here.
Thank you. Just in terms of commentary, Mr. Chairman, I think staff have done an excellent job in the report on justifying each and every one of these variances.
Yeah, I do too.
I followed it through nicely as far as the parking, the setbacks, and the capacity issue, which is no longer there. This particular project, I'm impressed by the TDM measures that have been put or will be put in place. And so I don't share the same opinion as the residents. I just want to acknowledge their concern about parking. I think there will be ample parking here. As we have done, Mr. Chairman, with others' applications today, I would like when the time comes to add the words to facilitate the development of the lands with a 3-tower, 946 multiple dwelling with underground structured and surface parking to the resolution in front of generally in accordance with the site plan. And the words in behind 1B, an easterly side yard setback of 1.5 meters to a 2-level above grade parking structure instead of. That will make it clear for me what's being proposed.
Sounds good. Is that a motion?
If there are no other comments or questions, that is certainly a motion.
Bob has something, Bob.
Yeah, I've listened to this and I support what Mr. Hanna is bringing forward. My one concern that kind of stood out in this is the 4-meter setback versus the required 39 meters. I know the new bylaw is 4.5 as put forward. This building is going, and I go up and down King Street 3-4 times every week. And I have been doing for a better part of 30 years. This building is going to stick out from the whole streetscape all along King Street quite significantly. Now that was brought up by some of the people opposed to this. I don't think much can be done about that at this time. It's just, I'm not happy with that one. Other than that, if Mr. Hanna wants to make a motion for this application to be approved, I would second that. All right. You were done, right, Scott?
Yeah, I'm
okay.
The comment I would make on my resolution is the 4-meter setback is certainly in line with the newer urban design guidelines.
Yeah.
And when I went out to see the site, it's not going to block any of the driveways from adjacent properties. And so that was my initial concern I shared, but after looking at it, I think it's going to fit in quite well.
Okay, great. Thanks. So there's second, all in favor? Carried, approved. Thank you. All right, Tina, you're up again.
Can I, excuse me, can I interrupt? Given the length of the meeting, I have to apologize and excuse myself moving forward. I have a 1 o'clock medical appointment that I have to get to. We still do have quorum, I understand, right?
Yep.
So if you will accept my apologies, I must leave.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Mike.
See you, Mike.
Take care.
Thanks.
All right, Tina.
Thank you, Chair. This is a consent application for 425 Binghamton Center Drive to sever a parcel of land having an area of approximately 10.9 hectares. I'm going to pass the floor over to the planner who wrote the report, Katie Andrew. I've been out of the office last week, and I guess there's some new developments and or new information that she can present to the committee.
All right. Hi, Katie.
Hello, thanks, Tina. Yeah, so the one piece of information that I can pass on is actually on behalf of the region of Waterloo. Just this morning, they had provided an additional email, provide some confirmation with respect to the record of site condition that they had requested in their set of comments. So they have had some consultations with our chief building official, and the CBO has indicated that they would be requiring a record of site condition in accordance with their regulations, which basically the region is satisfied with that and would be supportive of not proceeding with a record of site condition as a regional condition of approval. And so I'll share that with you. That's something that they've shared with us just as of 10 o'clock this morning.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. I guess what we'll do is we'll hear from Paul, just briefly on the application. And so if there's any questions, we can ask questions. Otherwise, we'll just go for a motion. Okay, Paul?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair and committee. You've had a very long morning and early afternoon, so I appreciate your patience. This is a very important application to the city as well as to Bingamons and the purchaser. The chair will recall back in about 2000, the city of Kitchener undertook an industrial land strategy and identified Bingaman Center Drive as a key focus of industrial activity. And that was what led to the advancement of Bingaman Center Drive construction and associated infrastructure. So the time has now come for what we're calling the eastern parcel to be severed from the balance of the Bingaman's lands. You'll recall that about 1 year ago, we were before committee on the severance of what we refer to as the western parcel. So that severance is now being consummated. The lands are being sold to Coopers, who are in the process of finalizing a site plan for a significant industrial a building on the western parcel. And similarly, the same approach is being taken here. We work very closely with Kitchener planning staff, Katie in particular, regional staff, as well as staff of GRCA. We support each and all of Katie's recommendations. We support and endorse the comments of GRCA to you. And with respect to the region's conditions of draft plan approval, we support the conditions save and except for regional condition 3, which we would ask be deleted in consideration of the written comments, the updated comments that Katie has referred to this morning. So with that, I would be pleased to answer any questions. I don't want to sort of belabor or overdo the presentation in consideration of the length of this meeting already. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Paul. It's a fairly straightforward application is from what we've heard so far. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Scott?
I didn't have regional comments on this, so I was going to ask what the conditions were, but somebody else on the committee obviously has them and may want to make the recommendation. I just had one question on condition 4 about the EIS. The way I understand the wording of that EIS is if the final EIS to define the limits of your natural heritage area is slightly different than what's shown on the reference plan, you will accept the new reference plan. Is that a fair comment?
Yes.
Yes, that's a fair comment.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. So I just don't have the regional comments, Mr. Chairman. So if somebody else wants to move this, I'll go along with it.
Bob?
I'm trying to find the regional comments.
We didn't get them.
I didn't get them
in essence. I think it's down to them just looking for the $350 fee now, I believe.
Yeah, okay, just let me make sure I understand which one we're
I'm
doing.
happy to go through them if you wish.
Sure, Katie.
Yeah, certainly. So the region has indicated they have no objection to the proposed application following the, subject to the conditions, $350 fee. The owner applicant must submit a valid section 59 notice. The condition we've discussed with respect to the record of site condition and removing that. And then they have also indicated that they're satisfied with the submission of a phase 1 EIS or similar study as a condition of approval.
Okay.
Well, I guess the only thing we need to add, Mr. Chairman, is the section 59 issue.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Actually, should we be looking at condition number 4 and just to leave it to the satisfaction of the city and remove region and or GRCA from that?
I personally think that all three should be satisfied. I mean, obviously GRCA is got a lot of control over natural heritage features. So I think they can work together on this.
All right. Okay. So that's the motion then, Scott?
Yeah, I'm happy to move. I guess we would add a condition 13 about the section 59 approval from the that's required, but I fully support the application subject to
Okay,
the 13
second,
conditions.
Bob? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks so much.
All right, Tina, down to the second last one.
We're getting there, yeah.
Getting there.
Okay, this is the second last consent application, 96 3rd Avenue. They're requesting consent to create a lot for like one semi-detached dwelling, 2 dwelling units. Existing single detached is proposed to be demolished. Staff reviewed it in terms of the regional, provincial, and city policies and finds that it meets all and are recommending approval subject to conditions.
Great, thank you. It's a fairly straightforward application. We've seen many of these before. Any questions, comments, or motion? Scott?
I'm just going to make my normal comment, Mr. Chairman. I think this is the wrong approach. I think the semi should be built first and then the severance go right down the middle of the party wall, because as much as the surveyors think they're perfect,
they're not. I know.
they're perfect and they're not. So I don't mind a semi on this lot, but I think it's premature until the thing's built, but that's my comment.
All right. Bob, motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I support what Mr. Hannah is saying about the semi should be built and then severed, but sometimes that doesn't always go according to plan. Other than that, I think it's very straightforward. All conditions have been reviewed. The region has been covered. There's no GRCA. So I will move that this be approved with the, what do we got, 16 conditions in the staff report.
Just before we move on, I see Richard lurking in the bottom there. Did you want to add anything at all, Richard, or no?
Hi, good morning through you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the other members. Just wanted to be on the call in case there are any questions that may have arisen related to the noise requirements that we have. That's
okay. All right, great. Thanks. Okay, motion on the floor, second.
Reluctantly.
Unfortunately, well, I guess the way the cookie will crumble, Scott, is if the surveyor is off, they need to come back for a committee of adjustment again. It's the risk they take, right?
Yep.
I don't disagree with you. Okay, all in favor, carried.
Good to see Mr. Perront again. Been a while.
Don't tell anybody. Yes, I'm alive and well.
That's what his wife says every morning too. Wow.
Lots of love. Lots of love.
That's, I know. Okay, Tina, last one.
Okay, last one. This is a consent application for 50 Florence Avenue. They propose to demolish the existing single detached and build 2 new single detached dwellings in the place. Both lots will meet zoning requirements. Staff reviewed the consent in light of provincial regions and policy and finds that it meets all and are recommending approval subject to conditions.
Okay, questions or comments? Scott, first, you had your hand up, you beat you there.
If the applicant doesn't want to speak, I think this is a marvelous infill development. I drove by it and can visualize the 2 houses, fully support, so.
All right, yeah, it's good, straightforward application. Bob?
If that's a motion from Scott, I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Carried. You're approved. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.